So you're struggling with your golf swing. It could be because you're messing up these two things. One is going to be your arm structure, two, the forces you're applying into the ground. We're going to dive into how to match those up better for you so you can play better golf. If you're new to golf, let's do a quick breakdown into arm height. And when we talk about arm structure, we mean height of hands at the top. So this would be a very vertical arm structure at the top, and then this would be a very deep arm structure at the top. The two best matchups that most people might know is we've got JT, Justin Thomas, very, very high hands at the top of his backswing. Then on the flip side of that, we have Matt Kuchar, very, very flat at the top of his backswing. Those two golfers are going to need drastically different forces coming out of the ground to get the club and their arms into their best spot for them to hit the golf ball well. So if you're struggling to hit the golf ball, let's talk about the arm structure at the top. What we're looking for is at the top of your backswing, if the bottom of your lead arm can just be just above your trail shoulder, give or take, is a good spot. So basically what we're looking for is once you get up to the top of your backswing, this leading arm, the bottom of your leading arm, should be just covering your trail arm. Somewhere around there is going to be a good spot for you. Then we've got onto the higher side. This is going to be closer to fades if you don't do anything else from here. Think this way. Then we've got flatter arm structure that's going to be a little bit more into the draws slash hooks pattern. Now again, what we need to do is we need to match up your arm structure to the forces you're applying to the ground. If we dive into the forces you're applying to the ground, there's lateral forces, which is left and right towards the target, away from the target. That's going to be your first force coming out of the ground. Then we are going to have torque forces. Torque is going to be anterior and posterior forces. So pushing this way, pushing that way. That is going to be the second force that's going to be coming out of the ground in sequence. Then the third force is going to be verticals. That's going to be up and downs. If you have an arm structure that is higher at the top of your backswing, you are going to want to have more verticals than torques. You got to think about this. If you were to open up a pop bottle, torque would be to open it up. We do not want that in your golf swing if you have very, very high hands, because torque is a steepener. It is going to push your hands out, and that's going to get your shaft too vertical, and you're going to have bad golf shots coming from that. So if you imagine, you have to think, okay, well, either I can change my arm structure at the top so I can lower it, and then I can keep the force into the ground the same, or I can change the forces. The hard part for a lot of you golfers is that you don't know, you can't get on force plates, so you don't know, okay, well, what are my forces? But you can see roughly how much your hips are opening. If your hips are opening a ton, that means that you're applying a lot of force to open them, which is going to be coming through the ground. And what I mean by that is if you have higher hands, you don't want to turn and rotate as fast. You need more time to bring your arms down. One thing that brings the arms down, guess what, is going to be verticals. So we need to get that up. Again, if you're going to have higher hands like JT has massive amounts of vertical to get the club down. Think about throwing an object. If you pick up an object this way, if you turn and rotate, the object will be out here. But if you get up to the top and you push up the ground, it's going to drive that object down. That's what we're talking about with the club. So you need more verticals in your swing. Well, if you're Matt Kuchar, guess what Matt Kuchar needs? Well, Matt Kuchar can't add verticals from here. He's going to get stuck. He needs to be adding more torque to drive his hands out, get that club out in front of him. So let's dive in. Let's go into arm structure first. One of my favorite drills to get the arms flatter, let's say if you're 2JT, is this one. So here's the drill. Super easy, 2 alignment sticks, driveway markers at Home Depot. You're gonna zip tie them together. If you're on a grass range, drive them into the ground. How we're gonna set up this drill is you're gonna get into your dress position. And if you back up to this alignment stick, we're looking at, let's say if you're really high hands, we'll go 4 fingers. As you get more comfortable to this, we can start lowering it. I like to go to the extremes when you're practicing feels, especially if it's new. The distance away from it, you should be basically banging into your wrists here. Because as we work off the golf ball, you can see how, oh, this is maybe a little too far away. I can still get my hands higher. So we want to get a little bit closer to that. And then from here, it's like, oh, yeah, there we go. My lead wrist is now touching this. I would then bang on it as I'm working up to the top of my backswing. We don't want that. So we want to get, again, somewhere inside that lead wrist would be a distance away from that as we turn and rotate. And from here, again, if I was to go super high hands, you can see I would smash through this alignment stick. Don't want that. So what we're looking for is we want to work off the golf ball, and we want to get those hands underneath this alignment stick at the top of my backswing. And from here, you can see how flat that would be around my body. Now, let's say your arms are too flat around you, Matt Kuchar. Here's your drill for that. Get those arms higher. I want you to take a driver head cover. You're going to put it underneath your trail arm. Now, as you work off this golf ball, you're going to drop that cover and you're going to raise up your hands as high as you possibly can. Again, feel versus real. I don't have a struggle with getting my arms up, so they're probably going to get too high here. But basically what we're looking for is as you work off that golf ball, we want to feel like we're going to drop that driver head cover and then we're swing down and hit the ball. And you can see how high my hands are at the top of that swing. So for anyone struggling with your arms way too flat, this is a great drill for you. But let's say you like your arm structure at the top, or let's say it's in a pretty good spot, but you're interested in how would I add more force into my ground to match that. So let's just say you're on one side or the other. Maybe you have a little bit of higher arm structure, but you want to add some verticals and remove some torque in your swing. Let's dive into those right now. So I'm sure you've seen some of these. These are force pedals, but you could easily use a tennis ball. Just if you're going to cut a tennis ball into 1/3 or in a half, just be very careful. I don't want you to cut yourself. With the force plates, let's say if we're trying to remove some amount of AP force. Let's say you're getting up to the top of your backswing and your hands are just slightly on the higher side, and then you're absolutely ripping the hands forward because you're opening your hips too early. Well, what I would love for you to do is I want you to stand onto this force pedal. And when you get onto the force pedal, I want you to understand that as you're nearing the end of your backswing, we do not want to be pushing the force pedal out this way. We're not trying to shove it in front of us. We're trying to go straight down into it. And so we're trying to feel like we're constantly squeezing down, not across. So imagine if you were like squatting something. Once you're starting to move up, I want you to feel like that motion on the force pedal. I do not want you to feel like you're trying to juke somebody and that's going to spin your hips open as you start working down from the top. Again, this is matching up for somebody that their hands are too high at the top of your backswing. So again, we're just standing on the force pedal, standing on the tennis ball, and then from here it's like, all right, I'm going to work up to the top of my backswing, and then from here I don't want to feel like I'm trying to push this foot out. I want to feel like I'm trying to drive my arms down. Okay, and that's going to be more vertical than it is going to be torque based. And this is what we're looking for to neutralize that. Again, start slow, deliberate. It does not need to be overly fast. Get up to the top and feel that push coming down from that. So again, up and then a push. That's what we're looking for. And that's going to create a better pattern so that the AP forces don't force the hands out. We're going to get the arms to drop down. Now, if we are somebody that our hands are too flat around us, well, now we need to be applying lots of force to drive them back and in front. So again, we're going to do the opposite. I want you to feel like you're trying to drive this foot, which is going to drive the lead hip back and around. That's going to kick your hand path out back and in front of you if you're somebody that is very flat at the top of your backswing. And that's going to drive the hands out in front. You need more of that AP force so that you don't hit massive hooks coming from the inside. Now, on top of all this, I think the most important thing for most golfers to understand is the width in their swing. So we've got depth and height, but width is something that you don't often see from down the line. And I don't think enough amateur golfers videotape themselves from face on, or better yet, would be overhead. If you could videotape yourself more from face on, you're gonna see something that is very interesting, and that's something, or even from the backside for that matter, something that I really love golfers do, is you're gonna see the width that you have in your trail arm. And no matter where your arm structure is at the top, so if it's higher or flatter, width is something that I think most amateur golfers are struggling with because we lose our hands in the golf swing. And what I mean by that is we're looking down at the golf ball, we're looking at the target, and the second that our hands leave our peripheral vision, it's almost like we've forgotten what happens with them. And the trail arm for most golfers just flattens or collapses way too much. So something that I would love for you to also do is I want you to videotape yourself more from face on. And what you're looking for at the top of your backswing is even if you make a full turn, so let's say your right shoulder just peeks out on the other side of your head, we don't want these hands to be working back behind us. And especially if you're gonna videotape yourself from the back side, let's say if it's hit a golf shot this way, what you're looking for is this trail arm. You want this trail arm to be more than 90 degrees. And again, it's something that's difficult when watching it in 2D. You often have to be really aware of how much this trail arm is collapsing. One of my favorite drills is, I've been using it all the time, is this little 45 training aid, which I'll grab here in for a second. And if you follow me on social media, you've noticed I've made a couple posts of this recently because it is a really, really cheap and easy training aid for you to make sure that you have proper width to drop your backswing. This is a 5 inch, but you could get, or sorry, 4 inch, but you get a 5 inch, you get a 6 inch. If you've got big muscular arms, you're gonna need a bigger one than I have. And all you're gonna do is just get this on your trail arm. Now, when you videotape yourself from face on, is you're gonna see, oh man, I feel like I want this arm to completely bend in here, versus if this is in the right spot, it stops that from happening. I would start really slowly because I've had some students that are like, they're so used to collapsing their trail arm that they're like, oh, I bruised my bicep. Well, that just goes to show you how much you're used to bending this arm. Most tour players are more than 90 degrees. So they like, and I mean this way. So they're like, you know, 60 degrees out versus bending in, I don't know, I think it's like 120 or 130 or something is the average amateur. So they're, and Rory's like 60, right? So just to show you how wide he has the top of his backswing. And it's the width that creates a lot of speed in the swing. The hard part for golfers is that collapsing feels very strong at the top of your backswing. So I would get comfortable, and this does not matter high hands, flatter arm structure. This is a universal. If you're looking for one thing that all pros do really well, it's they have width at the top of their backswing. Get comfortable hitting golf shots with a little piece of pipe, which again is really cheap. You can get at a Home Depot or any hardware store that's around your area. You want to make sure that you're making still the fullest turn that you possibly can. Again, we don't need to completely rip the hips open, but we want to feel like we're getting our right shoulder around our head. And then again, we don't want to collapse this arm. We want to feel like the hands are as wide as they possibly can at the top of your backswing. And that's going to create some really good stretch. That's going to create some power and some speed in your swing so you can hit the ball further and better. Because in the end, we need to match up your arm structure to the force you're putting into the ground, and you want to have great width so you can hit better golf shots. Now, if you need help with your golf swing, please let me know in the comments. Are you a higher arms or a flatter arm structure? And then again, if you have any problems with force into the ground, I have a couple other videos that you can go search those up, talking about torques and laterals and verticals to gain you some better club head speed so you can hit the ball further and lower your scores.